welcome to the Review of Champions. Today we're going to talk about Wonder Woman, our first movie review. It's currently playing in theaters and streaming on HBO Max if you're in the United States of America. Before we begin, I would like to invite anyone listening in or watching this video to join us on Sakaar. Become a member, chat us up, and join the conversation. Who knows, you can star on the podcast or review. Introducing today's panel. We're going to start with ShadowBiz. And then we have Maximura here. Taylor first. And
Hello.
Introducing a new panel member for the first time joining us, boldly going where no woman has gone before, the Sakaar podcast, CheetahCandy. Hello and welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Well, we're going to talk about Wonder Woman 1984. I want to give the turn to Taylor with his first short thoughts about the movie. We keep it spoiler free. We will give you a warning when we dive into spoilers later on in this review. Taylor, take it away.
Overall, I have a positive reaction to this movie. Overall, I think it's a good movie. It's not a great movie. It has issues, and we will get into all of those. But overall, I think it was good. It was entertaining. It was very comic booky, which I don't use as a pejorative. I think that's actually a good thing in a comic book movie. And the cast overall, for the most part, was very good. So overall, I have positive things to say.
Good to hear. Cheetah, what were your thoughts?
I actually did not like the movie at all. I kind of want that 2.5 hours or whatever it was of my life back. Maybe that's my fault for anticipating it so highly, but I didn't like a lot of things about the movie. There were some things I liked, but too much I didn't like about it. So, I mean, I'd give it a chance. I'd watch it again, but...
Max?
I was pleasantly surprised by it because going into it, I am not a DC fan in the first place. So to go into it, I saw several problems from the trailers. I was worried about some things. They resolved them all quite well in a way that, from the trailer complaints that I had going into it, made a lot of sense to me. I was fairly happy with the reasons they justified most of what went on there. All in all, the movie looked very good. There were obviously some issues with it in pacing for me. I felt like it was about a 90-minute movie shoved into 150 minutes. And it felt like there was just too much filler that didn't actually relate to the point of the story in any way throughout the film for me. But all in all, it was better than I was expecting. So that was positive for me.
Excellent. Biz, what are your short thoughts?
Well, I thought it was, I really enjoyed the movie, which was surprising to me because, like, from the reviews, it didn't sound too good. Like, for example, I think some of you guys know Stuckman, and he didn't like the movie at all. I mean, like, he just expected much more. So I was really surprised. Like I said before, Aquaman was my favorite live action DC film. This topped it. Like, I felt the emotional sequences were pretty good. I related to it. And yeah, like the action was great, cinematography. There's a lot to love about it. The first one I didn't really do much for me, but this one I was just pleasantly surprised.
Excellent. We are gonna talk spoilers now. Max, take it away.
I was really worried about a bunch of things from the trailer. The why a person with cat powers would possibly be an equal to Wonder Woman thing was baffling to me. So to have that covered with the wish to be her equal thing without even knowing she was dealing with Wonder Woman, but just getting the wish that made her the equal made it a very believable cause for me why that was an actual threat to her. It was impressive work in a lot of this film. I enjoyed a lot of the visual efforts. There were a couple that fell a little flat for me, but for the most part, it looked pretty good when they were trying to look good. The flight on the jet through the fireworks was an iconic view. It definitely matched a look they were going for there. Again, most of what I have that I enjoyed about the film was visual. The concepts, as far as the villains and everything, I thought both of them had perfectly good causes for being there. I think they could have been expanded upon a little more, but I think those villains could have been played in a way that took more advantage of what they were working with. But all in all, I like what they did with it. It was a better film than I was expecting, and I can't really say too much more in the positive direction. Unfortunately, I'm weighed down by some of the other thoughts of the film right now. I'll get to the more positive memory of it in my future self.
Oh, were there any acting performances that stood out for you, or?
Pascal obviously does a pretty good job there. I actually did like Wig in the role in a lot of ways. They might have gone a little comical with her at the beginning rather than just a little clumsy. But all in all, she managed to play that pretty well. The crazier she got, the better it worked for her. I was actually liking her more and more the further she got into her demented state. As for Pascal, you could sort of see who he was the whole time, and you could see his progression working like that. I feel like we got the backstory on some of his like personal reasonings, but we didn't really see it impact him as directly as we might have been able to, which I know is a very vague way of saying that. I don't know what the correct answer was. I just feel like it pulled up short in a couple of areas on the actual development of those characters.
Yeah, we're going to talk about dislikes a little bit later. Moving on to Cheetah. What did you like about the movie? You said earlier there were some things you liked about it, so let's hear it in spoiler details.
Well, first off, I love Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I think she's just perfect in that part. Kristen Wiig, I wasn't sure at first I was going to like her because the only thing I've ever seen her in is Saturday Night Live, and I was afraid she was just going to be like a Jimmy Olsen character throughout the whole movie, and it was not looking good, but she did really great. I really liked her as Cheetah and as her character. I can relate to her character in the beginning because, I'm kind of the same way, kind of dorky and stuff, so I get it. And I'm big on movie soundtracks, and there was a beautiful piece of music that they included, which was John Murphy's Sunshine, after she lets him go finally. And I believe it's a scene where she's just flying through the air, and they play that tune, and that's really great. So I really like that. And I like the scene with the fireworks. That was really cool. So that's pretty much what I can say that I liked about the movie.
Okay. Taylor, do you have any specific real likes about this film?
I like the acting. I thought Pascal was very good. I thought Wig was very, very good. I thought Chris Pine is just naturally likable. He just does a good job, and he did a great job in this role. He didn't overdo it. He could have really overdone the fish out of water thing, but he didn't. He was still Steve Trevor, super cool guy, just in a new situation. So I thought that was done well. I thought the convoy battle scene was excellent. I thought that was a really, really good action scene. We'll talk about the other action scenes later, but I thought that was very well done and very, very good. I liked the story overall. I thought it was set up well. I thought it was kind of creative. Like I mentioned earlier, it was very comic booky. It was very much a type of story. I mean, a magic wishing stone that had destroyed civilizations throughout history. I thought was pretty creative, and the way they resolved it at the end, I also thought was quite creative. So those are my big takeaways as far as positives go.
Well, Vince, you were the most positive of us all, so now you can let us know why.
Well, for example, how the movie started, that opening was awesome. I liked how we saw a little bit more of Themyscira. Obviously, there's the larger world building. It was just because it's kind of like an adventurous kind of feeling. It was great to see. I know I can go into the issues of course as well, but the overall story, I'm with script is king. Yeah, there are issues. I'll emphasize that, but it just worked for me. The emotional messages, the messages to do with I don't know, say capitalism. Some might not like the politics of it. The greed is good, or materialism, that kind of thing. It just worked well for me. The messages, the emotional scenes with Diana being alone for quite a long time. She couldn't get over Steve Trevor's death, and then he comes back. Yeah, of course it's understandable that she wants to be around him for longer, but at a certain point she even realized herself that she needed to overcome it and restore order. I know, it just the whole thing just worked for me. That's all I can say.
Taylor, you have a remark?
Yeah, Biz reminded me the opening scene of baby Wonder Woman doing the American Ninja Warrior course. was very good scene. I agree 100% with Biz. I meant to mention that when it was my turn to talk about what was good. But yeah, it was excellent, and I agree with everything Biz said.
Okay. Well, Biz, were there any things you didn't like about the movie?
Yeah, like for example, even though Maxwell Lord and Pedro Pascal's performance was like top notch, he was Maxwell Lord in name only. Like if anyone's familiar with the comic book character, he does have like a slight telepath power, and he is an actual legitimate businessman. He's kind of like a B grade Lex Luthor. So that's one thing I didn't like about the characterization of Maxwell Lord. I mean, he doesn't get his power from a dreamstone. What else is there? For example, the golden armor. I thought that was a bit forced. I mean, like it's just convenient that we'll get some history with the lassos. Like here's that golden thing. We'll talk about it now. It was a little bit too forced for my liking.
Mm. Okay,
Yeah.
then we're moving back. We're going back full circle. So now we're going back to Taylor. What was it that you didn't like about the movie?
The opening sequence, well, after the Themyscira scene, where Wonder Woman is shown scenes of saving people and then stopping the robbery in the mall. And the robbery in the mall did lead to the wishing stone, so it actually had a purpose. But I've seen a lot of people on the internet and in the media saying this was reminiscent of the Reeves Superman movies and an homage to that. And it was. I mean, it literally felt like Superman 2 or Superman 3. I just think they may have taken it a little bit too far. I've seen several people make the comment, and I had the exact same thought when I was watching it. I'm like, this movie isn't set in the 80s. It was written in the 80s. Because that's a little bit how it felt like. But that faded pretty quickly after that scene. I don't know if that was intentional by Jenkins or not, but I thought they overdid that just slightly. A couple of things were really forced. Yeah, everyone wants to see an invisible jet in a Wonder Woman movie, but oh my God. Yeah, I tried this once before. I made a coffee cup disappear and I lost it, so I'm going to make this plane disappear. And lo and behold, it falls off a radar as well. There were other things. My God, they stole a plane that was sitting on the runway, fueled up, and flew it to Egypt. That plane would never make it to Egypt. It's a fighter jet, for God's sake. But it's a comic book. I believe me, I have more than enough suspension of disbelief in a movie about a woman who lived on an invisible island for thousands of years with a bunch of other immortal women. I can go with the plane had extra fuel tanks or something. Okay, so that didn't bother me that much. The movie could have been a little bit shorter, but the length really didn't affect me while I was watching it. I wasn't bored at any point. I didn't feel like it was too long, but I know there are places where they could have tightened it up. Some of the stuff with Max Lord's son, I know that was important, but I think they overdid that aspect a little bit. The Cheetah, I actually really liked the Cheetah story and arc, but oh my God, how many times do we see this same supervillain arc in movies? Whether it's the Riddler or Selena Kyle or Poison Ivy and Batman and Robin, is literally the same character arc over and over. Dorky with and actually at the end of the movie we saw Maxwell Lord was kind of that same character too. He was just hiding it from the beginning. It turns out he was a dorky guy who got picked on and no one took him seriously, and he was trying to force people to take him seriously. Kind of the same thing. So I just wish they would come up with something a little bit more creative than that. So those are my biggest complaints. And really, like I said, overall I'm positive on the movie, and none of those I think are deal breakers in any way.
Okay. Well, Cheetah, what were your main dislikes about this movie?
Taylor covered a lot of things already, but I would just add that I did not like the CGI in the movie. I thought it was not all that great in a lot of scenes. I hated the mall scene in the beginning. It was awful. And I didn't, now personally, the whole plot of this wishing stone and wishes and everything just did not appeal to me at all. I don't know. I personally just did not like it at all. I thought they could have done better than that, but whatever, that is what it is. But I didn't like that. And I didn't like Max Lord at all. I don't know. He didn't appeal to me as a villain, either. I liked Cheetah, I liked her, but him I did not like. And
Is that the character or was that the performance?
the character, not so much the performance. I mean, I've seen him in Game of Thrones and stuff, so I thought he did pretty well as far as what he was handed to do, but I just didn't. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I just didn't like the guy at all. Maybe that's the point. Maybe you're not supposed to like him, obviously, but I don't know. Didn't like it.
Max.
What I was going to say about the negatives, though, is that they seem to under-explain a lot of things that could have used further explaining. I would have loved to have seen a deeper dive into what Cheetah's mind was like as she was going through all these transformations. I mean, they morphed her into a cheetah person off screen. We missed the biggest moment of the film, basically, and they just showed up with her later. It seems very weird to me the things they chose to stay away from in this film while showing things that I would say were more or less useless. The invisible jet, the golden armor. All of these things were iconic scenes that they wanted to put in the film, but they only put them in for the purpose of dumping them. Like, they didn't actually use it. When Link gets a power-up in a video game, he beats the dungeon with that power-up, and then the next time he gets one, he beats the next dungeon with a new power-up. Like, you don't just introduce skill sets for no reason and no payout at all, and that seemed to happen repeatedly in this film. If you were going to do the invisible thing, you could easily toss in, during the childhood backstory, have her use the invisible power to cheat a little in that race. Maybe that's the time she used the invisibility. You could do all these things to tie this together in a way that actually made sense for a progressive plot, but instead it just feels like a bunch of disjointed efforts to get to the next iconic scene.
Okay, so the whole movie felt a bit disjointed for you.
It felt like we had a good idea and then threw it away in the pursuit of making sure we had pretty pictures show up at the right times. I feel like there was no reason to put in the invisible jet, given that they gave her flight in the same film. There was never a payoff to the invisible jet. The invisible power that she had only used once on a lost coffee cup, she could suddenly make the cockpit not be invisible from the inside so that she could still see everything and control the plane. But, like, where did she learn this level of control if she's only ever done this to one object in her life? It's just, they didn't explain the things that really needed explanation in that film. They wasted time showing a flashback that she couldn't possibly have had info on for the golden armor. So she shows him a memory that she can't possess, but then she let him find his way through the 80s instead of just catching him up on the last 70 years with a quick rope trick.
Taylor.
Yeah, I wanted to make a side note. I just wanted to point out that it's kind of a hallmark of DC characters, especially in DC movies, that they just kind of have random powers appear out of nowhere. I mean, do we remember Superman 2, where suddenly he could pull the S off of his chest and throw it, and it turns into a net or something at his end? Where the heck did that come from? Okay. And then at the end of the first Wonder Woman movie, all of a sudden she's got God lightning powers. And the Flash, suddenly he can run so fast that he goes back in time. And of course, the classic Superman suddenly can spin the world in the other direction and turn back time. And I just don't know if that's just a laziness in writing, or whether that all comes from the comic book. I don't know. I haven't read a whole lot of DC comic books, but it just seems to be sort of a thing that keeps coming up in DC superhero movies.
Yes, those sort of things do come up, but you also see them get paid off in most cases. I mean, I will give you that the S on the chest capture thing was just out of left field. But most of those powers, like when he learns that he's able to run back in time, he has a reason for doing so. Later in the film, he actually does something critical to the plot, where we didn't get a critical to the plot payout on the golden armor. We didn't get a critical to the plot payout on the invisible plane. We got these powers, and we saw that she has them, but we didn't actually get to use them. And I knew I was going to get to this sooner or later, so I feel like I have to get into this. Lightning lassoing is the single worst power I've ever heard of in my life. This is obscene beyond belief. Unless she has premonitions or faster than light reflexes, she cannot extend a rope fast enough to possibly get it to a lightning bolt. Even if you allow that the magic lasso can hold on to lightning, fine, I'm fine with that. But she can't get it there in time, because by the time you see lightning, it's already gone. So you can't extend something. It's maddening to me that was a scene. It was just something to be pretty.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about her powers in general, but since Max brought that up, but isn't she technically half a god? Isn't she the daughter of Zeus? So maybe that's why she can do that. And the thing is with yeah, with some of her powers, I was a little bit iffy with it, but I kind of I let it go. But the thing is like with her lasso, yeah, like she suddenly became Spider-Man. Like I mean, it was a little bit weird. And then what was the other thing where I don't know, like and then she uses her tiara as like a batarang, like she's like now Spider-Man and Batman. Like yeah, it was a bit weird. Like they could have done something different with it. Like I like for example the lasso spin, that was pretty cool, like deflecting the bullets. But I think there was a bit too much with the lasso this time. I don't know that,
Yeah.
but that's just me. Yeah.
Yeah, with the tiara, she turned into Captain Boomerang a bit.
Yeah, no, I agree with Biz. It's one of those things. It was unnecessary. They didn't need to have her lasso lightning. And in fact, I mean, the entire lassoing lightning was in the trailer. I mean, I was really surprised that was all the lassoing of lightning she did. We'd already seen it in the trailer. It was unnecessary, but it's one of those things. Like I said, it's a comic book. We're talking about a movie about a woman who grew up on an invisible island with a bunch of other immortal women. Um,
Mhm.
you know, and it's just one of those things you accept. And I think Biz is right. Her power comes from the god. Zeus makes lightning come out of his hands. The lasso is made by Zeus. That's why it can lasso the lightning. Jedi can move fast enough to stop laser beams with their laser swords, which, by the way, defy the laws of physics as well.
Yeah.
You just accept it.
Yeah, that's
Otherwise,
true.
go watch National Geographic
Okay.
Channel or something.
Okay, you can accept the fact that she has these powers and they all of a sudden show up. But I have a question. This movie is set in a series of movie. You have Wonder Woman, then you get Wonder Woman 1984, followed by Batman vs Superman and the Justice League. Well, she had some neat powers in 1984, which we didn't see in movies that were set later in the timeline. How do you feel about that? It doesn't really make sense.
That
I
is
think
true, but the thing is, there was no opportunity to really, I guess, use it in that way that she did in '84 because there was no like lightning storm when Doomsday was around. There
No,
was no real.
but she does have the power of flight and she can make things invisible. Why didn't she take the spear,
Yeah,
made it invisible, and go fly off to Doomsday? He
but
couldn't
that's a
have
good
stopped
point.
her.
Well, because I think they were saving some of like the action shots for Batman and Superman. That's why maybe Wonder Woman was played down a little bit. I don't know. That's my reasoning behind it, I suppose.
Yeah,
we,
but
we can have a whole podcast about what was wrong with Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, that's a terrible
that,
movie.
that's that's
But no, you
that's
make a
absolutely true.
completely valid point. It goes
Yeah.
back to my point earlier about DC people and their random powers that are only there when the plot or the script needs them. I
Well,
mean, I'm
they
not a
have
big.
that also
I'm,
with people. They just show up where the plot needs them to show up, and that is. And I will not give a lot of opinion about this movie, as discussed before, but that's a problem I have with DC. There's a lot of convenience, a little bit too much convenience in their movies lately. But anyway, there was one thing I wanted to discuss with all of you, and I wanted
Dun,
to
dun,
go to
dun.
Cheetah first with what she thought of it, and that was the handling of Steve Trevor.